This tribe had a cruel tradition. All the women had to wear red. Whenever drums echoed through the village, the local lord released a kite into the sky. When its string was cut, wherever the kite landed, on whichever rooftop, that household's daughter would be taken. The lord dragged her away, subjecting her to unspeakable abuse until she died in agony. Women trembled in corners, each fearing she'd be next. Desperation hung thick in the air, but there was nowhere to hide. One girl knelt before the village goddess praying for salvation. Her mother, hollow-eyed and hopeless, told her even the gods wouldn't dare set foot on this cursed land. That's when the girl turned her back to the statue. At that moment, a broad-shouldered man stood at the city gate. No one knew it yet, but this outsider, Diva, was about to change everything. As a newcomer, he didn't know what the kite meant. Even his brother had kept the secret. Each lord ruled his territory like a tyrant. Diva's brother Dura was a lord too, the weakest among them. He seethed at their cruelty, but lacked the power to stop it. That day, the drums pounded again. The bloodthirsty lord began his hunt. The village girls scattered like birds. As the kite drifted over rooftops, the lord's henchmen chased it like vultures. Terror gripped every home beneath its flight. When the kite finally landed, a mother and her 3 daughters broke down in tears. Whoever was chosen was doomed. One daughter, staring at her helpless family, chose to face it alone. As the guards dragged her away, Dura and Diva passed by. One of the lord's men barked for them to mind their own business. They obeyed, but Dura kept stealing anxious glances at Diva. Only when Diva calmly rolled up his sleeves did Dura relax. Then the girl's mother ran forward, sobbing, begging to take her daughter's place. A buried memory hit Diva. 25 years ago, his own mother had been taken by these monsters. If Dura hadn't traded land to save her, they would have lost her forever. Now, watching the girl forced into a dark room and the lord's disgusting grin, Diva dropped his arms. Dura saw the change in his brother's shadow. He knew the beast had awoken. He didn't need to see what came next. Even with eyes closed, Dura already knew how this would end for those men. The prince once gave up his largest territory to a gang of thugs just to save his friend's mother. His father, the king, was furious. From that day on, the youngest son was treated with cold disdain. Though the prince eventually rose to the rank of lord, his world was ruled by power and brutality. He was constantly mocked, tested, and pushed to the edge. 20 years passed. The king, now old and frail, may have felt a trace of guilt. Out of the blue, he ordered Governor Langa to return a bracelet to his son. Langa panicked. That bracelet had helped his father become governor, and he himself had only held the role for a year. He stalled, claiming the handover would take 10 days.
मैं कुछ जरूरी काम से खानसार से बाहर जा रहा हूँ। लौटने से पहले वादा राजमन्नार को सरदार बनाने का जिम्मा पूरा करना है बने।
The king turned and walked away, still imposing despite his age. That's when some ambitious governors sensed blood. Crown Prince Yud rallied them with a simple pitch: take down Dela and he'd be the next king. With the king absent from Kunsar, Yud and his allies launched a brutal attack on Dela's lands. Dela's forces fought fiercely, but were eventually overwhelmed and captured. Just as the blade was about to fall, the palace bells rang. Was the king back? Everyone rushed to the palace, only to find the king's daughter, standing tall as acting ruler. She demanded the fighting stop. In 9 days, all governors and lords would vote on whether war should continue. She prayed their father would return by then. No side was allowed to strike first during that window, but behind the scenes, every lord was calling in troops, preparing for all-out war. Dela's men were on edge. At this rate, they'd all be dead by day 9. But Dela stayed calm. He had one final, powerful ally. At dawn, he and his men raced across the land, stopping at a blacksmith shop in a remote border town. Just from the silhouette, Dela knew he'd found the man he was looking for. 20 years hadn't weakened their bond. When Diwa heard what was happening, he didn't ask questions. He just got in the car. It had been 2 decades since he last set foot in Devil's City. No one believed one man could face down 10,000 soldiers, and even fewer imagined he might topple 1,000 years of rule in Kunsar. In a remote mining site, there was a man whose true identity lay buried beneath dirt and dust. His hands had once been so soaked in blood, they could have dyed the Indian Ocean red. Etched on his back was a divine totem, one so powerful it could bring humanity to its knees. And yet, here he was, living as a lowly miner. No one could have guessed someone would be dumb enough to harass his teacher, right in front of him. The moment it happened, fury surged through him like a lightning strike. His veins bulged, threatening to tear through his skin, but he couldn't risk blowing his cover. All he could do was grip the steel pipe beside him, hands trembling. Mistaking silence for weakness, the scumbag pushed his luck. Things were seconds from turning violent, until a passing police car sent the creeps running. teacher walked away, disappointed. Only then did he release the pipe. If not for his mother's constant warnings, those thugs would be dead already. She dragged him from place to place for years, terrified someone might recognize him. Every day he had to be home on time. Just a few minutes late and she'd panic, barely able to breathe. She wasn't scared for him. She feared what he might do to others. Even holding a plastic cake knife made her tremble. When she took it from him, her hands shook long after. Though nothing happened that day, her fears weren't baseless. What she didn't know was that the female teacher she'd taken in was being hunted by a powerful, shadowy group. One afternoon, as the teacher delivered lunch to the man, danger struck. Just as she turned to leave, a thug grabbed her and snapped a photo like they were old friends, then tried to drag her away. Panic hit her like a freight train. What crushed her most wasn't the thug, but Ram, the man, just standing there, silent, motionless. She cried out to him, pleaded, but he didn't move an inch. Her bodyguard spotted the commotion and rushed in with an iron rod, but he was too far. The girl was seconds from being taken. Just as the girl was about to be dragged away, he suddenly froze, for no apparent reason. At that exact moment, the one person who could change everything had arrived. It was Ram's mother, but then, the thug suddenly stopped in his tracks. Without hesitation, he told his men to cut off Ram's head. Two henchmen stepped forward, drawing steel blades thick as tree trunks. As they closed in, Ram's mother stood still, her worst fear coming true. She had fought so hard to keep their lives quiet, controlled. But as the blades passed her, she realized there was no way out. She had no choice but to awaken the ancient beast once more.